Then you have to create compelling content. This is where everybody's face gets really sad. What do we put in our email, right? Is that the, what do you think, is that the hardest part? Yeah? Dude, what do I say? So my first thing that I mean, brainstorm for a minute with me. What, where would you find content?
On the internet.
On the internet, absolutely. It's out there, right? So if you, let's say you're anxious, you're not the expert, but you don't have to be the expert. You could be the person that they always think, wow, well, Gloria, she knew so much because she just kept pointing me in the right direction. It doesn't, you don't have to be the one who wrote it necessarily. There is netiquette though. You certainly want to make sure you don't take credit for something you didn't write. Not that anything actually would really happen. That hasn't happened yet in the world of lawsuits, but I'm sure it's on the way, right? Is borrowing without letting folks know where you borrowed from. So you want to make sure. Where else might you seek information that you could share? Do you all know your top industry publication?
Does anybody subscribe to their own industry newsletters via email or even
Right?
in print?
The top finance newsletter, the top nonprofit newsletters, whether it be, you know, in specific to the type that they are, or whether it's a religious organization or right, or other. What are other parks and rec areas? What are they doing? Go look and see what they've got going too, right? I think it's flattering too. So those are some things to think about. But also you want to combine that with what is it you want to do. You might want to think about it before you start too. That's why I always say before you pick your template, think about exactly kind of what you want to do. Do you always want to have like a monthly commentary? And I don't mean like a full long article, we'll talk about that too. But do you want to have, you know, something, or do you want to have top tip of the month? You know, here's a big idea. If you don't have somewhere to go, try a 3 most asked questions, maybe top 10 steps to ease your stress during whatever season, right? 10 favorite classes offered by, right? And you could use that and you can break it apart and you could do 1 tip a month, or you can send those out and tweet them and break it up or then regroup. And you can definitely use and reuse, right? You all know that. You don't have to be totally. Can do last year's January newsletter, could look a lot like the one that's coming out this January. And most people will still look at it because it's probably pertinent information regardless. If it was good information, it's still good information. So you can inform, but you also want to relate to them. You certainly want to thank them or let folks know what good things have gone on. And so I use my high school Venn diagram to remind you all that you want to make a balance, right? How much? Everybody asks how much. So do you do 50% information, 50% promotion? I think that's too much. Old marketing standards was 80% information, 20% promotion, right? An opportunity to tell them good deals, what's coming up. I say now, kind of look at it a little more modern, go 70% information, 20% promotion, and 10% conversation, right? Ask customer feedback or testimonial.
What's the best way to get engagement is to ask a question. So rather than just broadcasting things out, if you rephrase it in the form of a question, then you're most likely to get people to respond. That's just human nature. You want to answer a question when you're asked of a question.
People want to participate, and tell them we'll show the results. People want, I mean, isn't that exciting? Your name's up in light? No. People like to see that you're listening though. So I say, again, my phrase is you're trading value for attention, but you can think of it as a balance between useful and promotional. Whatever kind of rings true to you, but you know that when you see over and over, you know, 20% off, 20% off, you start thinking, I'm not believing that anymore, or it starts to lose its the validity. So think about that. This is a newsletter. This is off of a template, and it's one of my favorite breweries from the Northwest. I'm from the Northwest, the Deschutes Brewery. It's a scary name to say out loud.
Bend, Oregon.
Bend, Oregon.
Yeah.
Great skiing for those of you who don't know, but I'm an Oregonian. Great beer, but you'll see how they broke up the space here. There's not a lot of words on this page. they've used what I call, you know, push people to do things, take some action, download, right? They've only one sentence of this article or this tidbit, and then they say download. Click here to download the rest. Right? You can be, if you're the expert, be the expert. And people are, they're okay, maybe a little interested in you, but they're really more interested in what you know. Right? So remember that as you're giving away information. You can do giveaways, you can do promotional type things, you can be entertaining. It depends on what you choose as your voice. What I recommend though is whatever that voice is, you try to use that over all your platforms. So it's very consistent.
Did you have a question?
Yeah.
So is that, the bitter truth,
Mm-hmm.
something that would come out from Constant Contact?
Yes, this is a template that you could find, and they have done this background right here as a picture.
Oregon
But,
or something.
right, but you can play with them, you can go more elaborate, less, but yes, any template kind of provider. And it comes up with a left column, they've picked a left column template here, where they sort of give a table of contents. I think a table of contents is a great thing to have. It gives that quick instant reference. I want the 10 top facts, or do I want the quick tips, or what is it I'm looking for?
So your company has market tested these and sees the best results coming from them, or no?
No, the question is, have all the templates been market tested? That's a great question. They haven't all been market tested specifically, I don't believe, but I can tell you some tricks that most people, that's a great question, but and you can go to check out the FAQs, the frequently asked questions also, and see kind of what the results are. But as you all know, those who speak English anyway are left oriented, so they'll go to the left column first. Right? Just like if you think about Facebook, which column do you go to first if you were looking at a Facebook? That doesn't mean that people don't look to the right. However, you just think about where you're placing stuff. So, and again, and I think more simple templates, the more fancy you get, right, the more words, it just becomes more and more convoluted, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And here's what I'm talking about. Let's say you click on download their newsletter, right? And I don't typically drink alone, just so you all know this, but they have this, like, click on, and I download this, and I think, dang, that's really interesting. Those 3 people I always drink beer with, I'll forward this to them, because at some point they'll probably want to read what are the flavors of the season. But all that information, if this is what came up when your newsletter was sent to me, I'm sure, I don't know about you, but I would not open that. I mean, it's the one industry, as we were talking about, that gets the most leeway is the religious world. Folks are more willing to spend a little more time if it's like a religious newsletter. Otherwise, forget about it.
So the idea here is to have a call to action. You click on that, it says download this, and then she sees something that's interesting to her, but also to her sphere of influence. So the idea is to compel her to share that with her sphere of influence, and then the hope is that those people that receive that will subscribe to this and they'll be added to your database, so you're building your list that way.
Can you click back and show me where that button was you clicked on? Oh, I see right there.
Download
So-
full newsletter, or click here for further information,
Okay,
or
cool.
whatever you
All
might
right.
want it to be.
All right.
So was that a PDF?
So what are they linking to? That's a great question. So you have ability to store information, use your web, it depends where you archive, right?
So
Or you,
that was a PDF?
So you can archive now this is a new edition for, okay. If you use Constant Contact, this is a new edition, where you can archive now PDFs too. So if you have a PDF of an event, it's awesome. You don't have to keep sending that flyer out. You can just click for each event's flyer, and it's saved in the archive. So yes, you need to have some home for this if you don't have a web page. So what you want to do is not put huge amounts of information, right? You want to say read on. You want to give folks something to do, but I don't think you want to overwhelm them with paragraph after paragraph of information that you may think is really exciting. You want to give them a choice to pick what is of interest to them.
So is the idea then, the email when it arrives, it needs to be fairly brief with lots of white space with all the highlights on that, but not all the minutia. Because when you're going through your emails, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of them. So my drill is just to scan to see if it's interesting, and then I'll go a little further if it looks interesting to me and actually read the body of that email. But if it's full of detail and it's 3 pages long, I'm just going to move on. I don't have the time. So this
Right.
would be to click on that link, and then at that point, if they want to slow down and read the whole thing or print it out and read it later, then they can.
And what made me kind of chuckle is I always tell people, I don't even know if we notice we do this anymore. If you have a smartphone or you go to your computer and you get your email, your laptop, wherever you might be, I really don't think, maybe it's me because I'm so used to getting so much email. You look at yours and you don't even know you're doing it, but you have now, never, later email, right? And you look at it and immediately if it's, you have somebody in your family you're worried about and it's right, or your boss, you're gonna look at that one, right, as you're skimming through. If it's somebody who emails repeatedly and you think, oh yeah, right, that's a never, before you even, right? So you get 3 seconds to grab people's attention.
So are you gonna be talking about the way that constant contact emails translate on the screen of a smartphone? Is that
Right,
part?
we'll talk about that. There is an app too that now you can do constant contact. That doesn't mean for me, I would never use that's a terrible word to use, never. But I would not work on my template format off of my smartphone because it's too small, even on the app. However, you can read it and it looks much nicer now with the app.
So the point is that, there are a lot of people now that don't even use a computer anymore. They do a lot of their reading and interaction on the smartphone. So the idea here is that if your email comes to them and it doesn't translate very well on the screen of a smartphone, you're wasting your time and effort. And if it does, they can read through and they can see the graphics, and if they click on the links, they work, and that's a
Right.
benefit to using constant contact.
So we talked about, again, not having too much information, connecting bullets, summaries. Again, you can then break apart your information. Remember we talked about that also, break it apart, make it a tweet, and so that it's bite-sized. I just call it bite-sized. I don't know.